10 years ago in the knife world, the words China or made in China were not exactly bywords for quality or rugged or even halfway decent. And to be completely honest and fair, 10 years ago, I was still just a grease-covered hot dog stand attendee, slinging overprocessed meat byproducts for cash in hand, under the table, tax-free. And I spent my free time browsing the local flea market and the outdoor section at Walmart. And up until the past 2 years or so, my knowledge and experience with the knife and EDC world had peaked at Bass Pro Shop, where I was usually too mesmerized by the gun and firearms section to even bat an eye at the rows of Spydercos and Benchmades locked away under glass. All that to say, I have a literal cigar box filled with the regrettable cutlery purchases of my youth, and not a single one of them holds an edge or deploys reliably, and some don't even open at all. And almost every single one of them is stamped, made in China. But a lot can change in a decade, and in fact a lot has changed, especially when it comes to the way we think about Chinese-made knives. Take, for example, if you will, this, the Rike knife Tulay. Now, I'm not going to lie to you and tell you I was in love with the aesthetic and or overall look of this piece, but I have been obsessed with Rike as a whole ever since I first caught wind of them and the work they do. This relatively young Chinese OEM has been putting out some seriously incredible pieces over the past few years, pieces with equally incredible price tags, and most of them, well, at least most of their more notable pieces, have been flawlessly done integral knives, machined out of one solid piece of titanium. Their most notable and popular line of integrals is the Thor line, yes, I know, and the level of craftsmanship and machining prowess at play on these knives is mind-blowing to say the very least. But as is usually the case, all of that mind-blowing work comes at a mind-blowing price, $500 to $600 to be exact, far out of my personal cutlery comfort zone. But like I said before, things change, and these changes can often be traced back to one singular turning point. Well, the Tulay here is that turning point. This somewhat strange and wild-looking full-size liner lock flipper is an integral in every sense of the word, but it is a G10 integral, and it can be had for $150 or less. Finally, an integral for the rest of us poor cutlery peasants. It is machined out of a single piece of G10 and definitely follows Rike's recurring design language of let's make it look like an alien invader here to suck out everyone's brain juices. There are a few color options out there. This one has the bright-ass neon yellow inlays, but it can also be had with OD green inlays or carbon fiber inlays or bright red inlays. And there is one variant that is red G10 all around with black carbon fiber inlays, and of the lot, I think that one is the best looking. There's machine texturing all over this knife, and all of it adds some extra intrigue, as if we needed any more intrigue on a Rike, while also adding some much-needed grippiness in the hand. The pocket clip is ultra deep carry, so much so that it sticks off the end of the hand a little bit, so as long as your pockets are deep enough to swallow up a knife this size, it is completely out of sight in the pocket. Unfortunately, the screws are not flat, and they are not countersunk, but I've noticed no issues at all getting it in and out of any pair of pants I own. Oh, and as I've mentioned a couple times already, this is a big knife. I'm talking a 3 3/4 inches long, bead-blasted 154 cm blade, and an overall length, open, of 8.75 inches. So be sure to keep that in mind before leaving the house with this one. The flipper tab is this interesting looking rounded gear thingy with a hole through it, and I think it looks great. And it is actually very comfortable to use and a nice change of pace from the usual flipper tabs in the knife world these days. I do, however, have a bone to pick with whoever is in charge of picking the font for the lettering on the blade. It literally just looks like someone pulled up Microsoft Word and found the most basic-ass cursive font, and they rolled with it. Rike, your RK logo is cool looking as balls. Just use that same font on the blade for Rike's sake. And I think the most interesting piece of design on the Tulay is the way the liner lock is countersunk into the inside of the handle and held in by these two screws you can see on the clip side. Just a, shiny silver reminder that you're carrying something out of the ordinary. But what good is a game-changing knife if you can't play with it like a fidget toy? The action on the Tulay is excellent. The massive drop-point blade runs on caged bearings, and although they are some of the noisiest bearings I've come across, they get the job done. The flipping action is endlessly reliable, and on the close, it just needs the tiniest bit of help to drop shut. But heed these words. This is a really loud knife. Like, my fiance can hear it in the basement if I'm in the attic fidgeting with it. It's that kind of loud. I'm assuming it has something to do with the integral aspect acting, like a resonance chamber on a guitar, amplifying the actuation sounds to a deafening level. But if you find yourself in a more sensitive situation, and you don't want to frighten everyone around you, you can pinch the exposed blade and swing it open nice and slow to keep the noise to a semi-reasonable decibel level. The ergos are honestly pretty solid. I mean, the handle is all of 5 inches long, so no matter the size of your hands, you have plenty of room to work with. And the little cutaway area where the liner access is kind of forces your index and middle fingers into place behind the flipper gear thingy. But to be honest, even with my smallish boy hands, the area can feel kind of cramped when I'm breaking down thicker cardboard or cutting for longer periods of time. It kind of mushes the two fingers together, so a touch of extra breathing room in this little cutout area would be nice. The choil is almost usable as a finger choil, almost usable for choking up, but the shape and size can make it just a touch too scary to use if I'm not paying absolute full attention to what I'm doing. And the sheer size of this knife kind of warrants the need for a safe and usable choke-up area. All in all, though, it's comfortable in the hands, and all of the texturing and sculpting locks into the hand very well, so it's not going anywhere. And as for the blade, first off, 154 cm is always a winner in my book, and the bead blast finish is very nicely done. We've got a pretty tall flat grind that comes up to meet a sizable swedge, and we come down to an acceptably thin cutting edge, so this massive integral is good and slicey. No complaints at all as far as cutting performance goes, and because this is a loaner from the Apex Pass-Around group, I've been going out of my way to put this thing through its paces before I have to box it up and send it out. And I can happily report that the blade has held its edge extremely well to a mountain of cardboard on top of a week or so's worth of normal EDC use in and out of the house. And the bead blast finish has done an excellent job of preventing and or hiding any marks or marring on the blade. One final strange thing to report on the blade, however, after about 15 minutes of playing with it when it first arrived, I noticed an almost microscopic chip toward the tip of the blade. And at first, I had just assumed it was from one of the other YouTubers that had handled it before me. But as I played with it some more, I noticed it had gotten bigger. And that's when I realized this knife is suicidal, or perhaps just dark and moody and into a touch of self-harm to get back at its overbearing parents. Who am I to judge? At any rate, one of the pocket clip screws is exposed and cuts right through the inside of the handle where the blade sits when it's closed. So as you fidget with it, opening and closing over and over and over, you're repeatedly slamming the tip of the edge into that piece of steel. Now, I have no idea if this is just a fitment issue on this particular knife, or if this is a widely known issue, but it is 100% the first time I've come across a knife that is actively trying to destroy itself. So, where do I stand on the Rike Tulay? Self-harm and wild-ass colorways aside, I am simply in love with the idea of an integral knife this big, this well made, and at 140 to 150 bucks. I have an integral in my personal collection, the We Knife Co. Eterna, that was designed by Elijah Isham, and that is a $300 knife. But I have to say, aside from the handle materials and the blade steel, fit and finish, the overall feeling of quality is tit for tat between these two. Both solid as rock, both beautifully made and finished, and both coming from exceptional Chinese manufacturers. So at the end of the day, if you've always been intrigued like me by the idea of an integral knife, but have also, like me, been frightened away by the painful price tags, I can absolutely recommend the Tulay. You get everything you want out of a knife: fidget-friendly, super slicey, original and interesting design, and on top of it all, it's an integral. I'm not going to like sending this one back, but I can tell you once I get back from the post office and I try my tiers, I will most likely be ordering one for myself. And I will be keeping an extra close eye on Rike's releases going forward. So, until next time, thank you for watching. Bye-bye now.